There we go. Right. Hello and welcome back to the UX Psychology channel. I'm Nick and I'm with David Di Sipio in Melbourne, and we're just going to have a 10-minute chat about the current topics of the week, I suppose. So welcome, David. How are you?
Hey, Nick. Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. How are you going?
Yeah, good, man. Very good. Very good. So how's your week been? How's the UX psychology world in Australia doing?
It's going really, really well. I'm really excited about how it's all going. There's a huge energy here. Oh, like I'm recording a podcast this week with the theme of UX psychology. I gave a talk on biases and how they impact product design to a room of 150 product designers. You know, it's just been a really exciting week. I really finished on a high, and I just feel like Melbourne is just, it's alive. It's alive. It's going really, really well.
So are you having a lot of contact from people? Are people getting in touch, asking you to speak or to kind of share ideas? Where's the energy coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Everything that you've just mentioned, and yeah, people are just reaching out. They want to know more about what UX psychology does, how they can get involved. We've actually this week also recruited Lane Long, who's just recently come to Melbourne, and she's going to be volunteering within the UX psych community. So the goodness just keeps on coming with this community, which is fantastic. But how's your week been? How's it going in the UK?
Oh, my world is a little crazy, but it's just too busy. I just need more time. You know, I've got my main gig. I've got another client. I've got a family. I've got UX psychology. It's just all going on, and I've got to, make materials for the meetup. I've got some speaker things coming up. I've got to write slides for, and I just don't have the time in the day. But it's all good. It's all positive. It's just I need to duplicate me or quit a job or something. I've got to find some more time. But it's all good. I met with Lisa Duddington and Ricardo Suarez of Keep It Usable, who run a Manchester-based usability lab and an agency up there. They do lots and lots of work, really good work, user-centric work, research facilities, and analysis. So I met up with them. We're going to team up, do something UX psychology related. We've got a few good ideas. I'm keeping them under my hat at the moment. I'll share them with you, David, but they're not ready to share just yet. They're a little bit premature. But like you say, exciting stuff.
Very exciting.
So when's your next meetup, David?
Our next meetup is happening tomorrow evening. It's a meetup on rapid ideation, which is being run at Fjord, Fjord HQ. So that's going to be a 2-hour-long session, and yeah, really excited about that one. Really, really excited.
Cool.
How about yours, Nick? When's your one?
We got our first one on the 21st of June. It sold out in like just under 3 hours. It just went too quickly, and unfortunately, I don't think I booked a big enough venue. But it's very, very cool and very kind of Red Badger to offer their space. So we're going to go ahead with it because I don't want to let Red Badger down. But I think the next one in July needs to be significantly larger. It's the same as you're seeing. There's so much energy. There's so much willingness that I just need to be able to support it. Like, lots of mouths to feed. So what we'll do is like we've talked about, we're going to broadcast as much of the meetup as we reasonably can to share with you guys, and also for other people around the world who can't make it to the meetup can still consume the content. So that should be.
How are you going to be broadcasting it? That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, we were lucky that Red Badger, the agency, have got broadcast facilities there in their meeting area. So it's fantastic. Hopefully, I can just put it up on YouTube Live and just let it run for a couple of hours. So the idea with this one on the 21st is we're going to kick off with personas. And we talked about this last time, but I'm going to go into a lot more detail. We're going to do some practical stuff. We're going to use your format, David, of, learn stuff, practice stuff, reflect upon it. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work yet. I've got some pretty good ideas, but it's going to involve not the segmentation part because that's so incredibly variable. I'll talk about it, but more about the construction, adding data to it, the value of them, and how to put some very interesting new ideas into personas, and to not be so rigid in your thinking, you know, less template driven, more needs driven, all of that really good stuff. So that's what we'll do. And the plan is, David, I hope you're okay with this, would be to share that video with you guys, or maybe just the output bit where people are sharing what they've done, and you can share that with your guys when they do the same sort of material to see how it compares with the output. That sort of an idea.
That'd be fantastic. I'd really, really like that. That sounds like a great idea. What will be the output, do you think? Like, what do you hope people walk away with from this session?
I want people to be inspired and kind of invigorated about personas in general. I want to kickstart their ideas by showing them the personas that I've done on a bunch of different projects, which are very atypical, but they are valid as all hell, and they are really strong constructs. And I just want to share people, you know, it's not rocket science. It's not hard to do. Don't be constrained by what other people are necessarily telling you. As long as they're valid, they can meet whatever need you need, if you know what I mean. Don't be constrained by what everybody else is doing, is effectively the central message. So yeah, I think the outputs will be some personas, literally some decks with some features, and calling them out as to why that's there, what the value is to the persona, how do you update it, what hypotheses come from it, what literature is related to it, all of that good stuff. So
that's fantastic. How many people do you expect to have in the room?
We should have about 80 people. That's about capacity. I don't know what everyone tells me there's loads of fallout or, you know, dropout during meetups. So I'm sure everybody was like, yeah, let's do this thing. And then they're like, you know what? I'm going to my mate's party or birthday or pub or whatever. So I think I probably might release 20 or 30 more tickets to handle it, but I've got to be very careful with fire regs and capacity and that sort of thing. So we'll just have to get through this one, and then July I'll get someone that does 200 or something, and it should be less of a problem.
That's great. Well, yeah, generally about 50% end up rocking up. So for the one that we're running tomorrow, we can only have 30 people. So I've only released 50 tickets, and then I'll regularly just say, hey guys, can you please just RSVP and update your RSVPs, because you're right, people do drop off, other plans come about, you know. But that's generally the equation, 50%, you know, rock up.
Oh, in that case, I'll definitely release a few more tickets, because there's loads of people been asking me, and I don't want anybody to feel kind of left out or any of that stuff.
Sounds exciting.
Let's keep things moving quite briefly, because we want to keep this relatively quick and snappy. Let's just briefly, David, when you conceived of UX psychology and you thought, you know, this thing needs to happen, what was it about psychology or psychologists that you see is the value that what is it that we bring to the digital table?
That's a really good question. For me, it's really I'm echoing on myself. Sorry. For me, it's got to do with the science that we bring and the rigor that we bring to the design process. When I landed in design, what I found was that there was no evidence to support the claims. There was no data. And I thought, wow, psychology and what I've been learning as an approach at university and through the work I've been doing can really, really help. So I like to see it as four things. There's the academic research, there's the data analysis, there's the quant methods, and there's the ethics. So they're the four pillars that psychology, I believe, brings to this space, technology and design. Be interested as well to see how you see it, though, Nick.
I would have said, actually, I would have only said three, and I would have forgot ethics because I'm an idiot. But I would completely effectively. I mean, in my world, in my mind, it's always been about the research methods and the subject matter knowledge. So the stuff about how do you study human behavior in the mind, so the actual research methods, and then what have we learned? You know, what do we know about perception, cognition, development, all of the good stuff. So yeah, and then around that is the scientific wrapper of validity, robustness, you know, confidence, all of those good things. So yeah, we're absolutely on the same page. I think the reason why you're seeing so much energy, and me too, is all we've done is said what everybody else is thinking, or a lot of other people are thinking. And They're just saying, yes, thank God you stood up and said that. I've wanted to say that for so long. Brilliant. You know, all we're doing is cracking the seal, so to speak. And the rest of that kinetic energy or whatever is coming from the audience, you know, and it's amazing. It's brilliant. It's really reassuring. And it's a form of validation for both you and I that we're not completely batshit crazy. And this is solid thinking, you know, that everybody else around the world is having the same thoughts. So, yeah,
totally.
really.
It's interesting. It's interesting to say ethics, because that's an interesting one that a lot of people miss, right? Even other people that work in this space. What's your, you know, in terms of ethical sort of practices and the work that we do? Because I'm a very big advocate, like, because as psychologists, we need to do a whole subject on ethics and how we impact and how ethics impacts our work, and we have to register. So when I speak to undergraduate students about the value that psychologists bring to technology, I always talk about the ethical practices that you're ingrained, because as a psychologist, I always default to ethics and is this ethical? Whereas in other disciplines, there might not be that default. Now, I'll share a little bit of a story if possible, if I can.
Yeah, go for it.
It dawned on me that ethics was a big part of this when I was working at a company called Osmed, and we were building an app for healthcare professionals. And I noticed that the decisions I was making as a product manager and UX researcher had huge influence. So we could make a change, a feature change in our app, which was helping people do good. So essentially to document their CPD. And I noticed that overnight, if we wanted to achieve an outcome to help people reflect or help people achieve a goal on the app, we could quite easily do that with a design tweak, with some new flow, with an onboarding, you know, tweak or something to the product that would then drive that outcome for the business, but also for the individual. And I thought to myself, and I remember sitting there going, wow, this is super powerful stuff. But if this is used in the wrong way, this could be absolutely, you know, that could really be really unethical things could be occurring. So that's where, for me, I started to really talk about ethics and how ethics is a very big, I don't know, it's a consideration, because ethical problems start with the individual, right? It doesn't start with anyone else. It starts with the person making the decision as a designer or, you know, working in the product. So that's why I feel very strongly about it.
So, you know, really classic case here. The Zimbardo study of, you know, the Stanford prison experiment, the classic, or one of the classic ethical issues, you know. That was replicated on British television about 10 years ago. It blew my mind. They ran the Stanford experiment like in a, and it broke down again and they had to stop it and all of that stuff. But the point is that knowing full well that it was not ethical, outside of academia or anywhere where there is kind of ethics committees and ethics is woven into the fabric of research, in the commercial world, they care about making money and stakeholder value and viewers and audiences and all of that stuff. They don't care about ethics at all. Look at Cambridge Analytica. Did you must have heard about that huge scandal? Again, you know, academically fantastically interesting, very, very cool research, but like ethically a disaster. I mean, the worst. So I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. Digital, or the world, needs more ethics applied, but we are a teeny tiny little voice in a commercial world, and it's the commercial angle, in my opinion, that screws that up, because money's more important than ethics in the real world, which is a shame, right? It's that's the way of the world we live in. With regards to the work that we do and that our viewers do when they are in the lab, they are in the field, you know, speaking to people. We used to call them subjects. We can't call them subjects anymore because it sounded too much like we were subjecting them to things, you know. Users is a bit dry, you know, participants or that sort of thing. But you've got to protect, as you well know, you have to protect your participants. And the sort of work that we do, generally speaking, isn't potentially harmful, but that's not the point. The point is you have to treat everybody with that same ethical concern. We should probably talk about this in a ton of detail in a separate broadcast, because it's a huge area. I'm glad you raised it.
Totally.
But I guess my bottom line is I do it for all my work that I do, but I constantly come up against other people who don't. Not researchers or UX people or designers, but people within the digital world. If I say marketing people, I'm probably going to get absolutely hammered. But there are certain types who have more concerns for profit than they do for audience experience and their user needs and etc.
The balancing act, though, right? You've really got to balance these things, because without the business, we can't do the work we need to do. Without the users and the people that are using the products, we also, using the businesses, we can't do it. So
no, and that's the argument I've had. I can't tell you. I know we've all had the same argument with the same kinds of people. Them saying, if I don't get these email addresses, we'll go bust, or we won't make the money. And it's like, yeah, well, if you make me give them their mobile phone number, they're never coming back.
Totally.
And that's the fight, or whatever it is. So yeah, no, well, let's talk about this a lot more. David,
I'd love to. Yeah.
This has been awesome. I think that's probably our 10 minutes or probably 15 minutes. So if let's call it, and let's just do this more frequently.
I think so, definitely.
Wicked. Always a pleasure, David. Always a pleasure.
Sounds
good luck tomorrow night at your meetup. Everybody watching, if you haven't got a ticket, it's probably too late. But UX Psychology in Melbourne at Fjord. Check out David on LinkedIn. And in London, we'll be on June the 21st at Red Badger in Shoreditch. So, awesome. David, thanks very much for your time, mate. Have a great week, and we'll speak again soon.
You too, Nick. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you, everyone.